Welcome to the Legendary Upside podcast. My name is Pat Rain. You can follow my content at legendaryupside.com. With me today, Daniel Racz, who just posted a mock draft to Legendary Upside, and we're going to go ahead and run through his entire round one mock. But we're also going to be answering some questions that we got in the Discord. Daniel, how's it going?
It's going good. Nothing like spending 8 to 10 hours a day just grinding mock drafts, any possible news sources, and trying to piece together the picks from the Jaguars to the Bears, and never feeling confident in any of them.
Yeah, we had on the channel Nick Garisco, who is one of your big sources for all this stuff. And I asked him like what he's doing, kind of, media consumption wise, to stay on top of all this. What are you doing, and how are you kind of using this information as well?
I mean, that's the beauty of like Nick reads so much that sort of I trust his judgment enough. And Fantasy Law Guy on Twitter should follow, has a great site. Like if he says something, I'm kind of trusting that he trusts what he got it from. But then the people at 4for4 do good stuff, trying to find as many like beat specific, like team beat specifics for some of the teams that I think have beats out there, like Nick Underhill with the Saints, Goodberry with the Bengals, Justice Mosquito with the Packers. So trying to see what they think. But then also, I mean, last year, I think my biggest like I got was thinking that JC Latham to the Chargers and then Joe Alt to the Titans was something that could happen. And part of that was trying to like play the game of a possible JJ McCarthy trade from the Bengals up. Like sometimes it's just Occam's razor, and like I'll be using Occam's razor just like justify my priors, but it really is just about like whatever is the simplest, like what makes sense, what's the simplest answer. Like I mean, the Jags are the favorites to take Ashton Jeanty, and I think there is real smoke there, but something smells fishy there. Same with like Tet. Tet even more fishy than Jeanty at 5. But then like when I get to Mason Graham, I'm like, well, I've heard from people I trust these had a bad draft process. And then I get to Jalen Walker. And like they have Josh Hines Allen and Trayvon Walker. So are they really going to add another pass rusher? Probably, because you need 3, but that doesn't feel great.
So I asked you about your media diet, and now you're doing a mock draft in your head. So you're deep down the rabbit hole, my man. Now you have like a whole portfolio of these bets as well, right? The NFL draft props.
Yeah, this is, I mean, we had Oscars and like Golden Globe season through like early March, and now it's draft bet season. Then it'll be more best ball season. So yeah, have a healthy diet. First bet I took was Cam Ward at plus 750 to be the first pick, but also have a ton on like no quarterback plus 200, Travis Hunter plus 500, and Abdul Carter 60-1. So I'm barely breaking even on the first pick, just hitting the Ward one, but still happy to like take a win there. Then assuming it's Hunter at 2, Carter 3, Campbell 4, or even Hunter and Campbell or Hunter and Carter could flip, but Campbell or offensive line going forward would be a huge win. And I look that way.
That's the chalk right now. All right, before we kick off into the mock draft here, we asked for some questions in the Discord. 24 Offsuit sent in this one asking how much of the betting markets are driven by mocks versus leaks versus smokescreen leaks, etc. How reliable are the betting markets as a tool for mocking, or is that double counting?
It's to some extent double counting, but building a mock, like I think there are some points where it's really tough to deviate from the chalk in a mock draft. Like I see Will Campbell's now minus 800 to be the 4th pick. I don't think he should be 88 or 88, even if you deviate it down like 75% applied. I'm not sure I'm that confident in Campbell, but there's no other player that I'm confident enough in. And this isn't like a getting leverage on the field as much when you're still like very confident in something, because I think Campbell's probably close to 75% to be that pick. So I'm not trying to like fade the chalk just because it's chalk, and the betting market does help me know what the chalk is. It on the double counting front, I mean, it's influenced by what mockers are doing. So in that level, like a big input in the betting markets are what people think will happen, whether that's via mock drafts or the bettors actually placing bets. But I think it's still very useful in thinking about how I think the draft can go. But they've also been wrong. I remember Will Levis was massive chalk at 4 as the draft closed. Jalen Carter was massive chalk to the Seahawks when they went Witherspoon ahead of him. So there are times where it can be wrong. And I mean, the Falcons, no one saw the Penix pick coming, but I don't think really any line of logic could have got you to Penix being the Falcons pick at 8. So there are some times where it's tough. But like Bijan, I know he opened like 20 or 40 to 1 to be a Falcon. Like I think I got in at like 16 to 1. Then like by draft's close, it got down like plus 150. Where there are times like the bettors are sending a signal that they think there are team player fits that make sense. So if you like follow the draft enough, just trying to think, why is the money moving this way? What's the narrative or evidence? There are times where like, yeah, this is a big signal.
All right, well, let's go ahead and get into the mock. So we've seen movement toward Cam Ward being the number 1 overall pick for a long time. And you've got this as a lock. I mean, I agree with, actually, this is hilarious, but you note that, he's publicly stated Tajay Spears, Tony Pollard, and Treylon Burks are top 5 players at their respective positions. The fact that he mentioned Treylon Burks and talked about Calvin Ridley as a stud, he knows he's going to Tennessee.
Yeah, I mean,
this is clear.
This is clear, like job interview 101. You're like, whatever company you're interviewing for, you're like in any channel that they might hear it, just trying to be like, oh, I really love their like ethical business practices. And I really love like the 4th least bad thing they do. And be like, this is just a wonder to society, which is Treylon Burks in this question. So, I mean, it's just great job by Ward while playing Fortnite.
Great job. Great job by Ward. As we move to number 2, Travis Hunter. You're slightly less confident in than Ward, but it seems pretty clear that the Browns have zeroed in on Hunter. Betting market reflects that. Going to number 3, we've got Abdul Carter. I know it's like extremely low, but do you think there's like any chance they do anything weird here, like Shador? I guess.
I think it would be a trade.
That's not happening.
I think it would be a trade out where like if they like Shador, I think it might not be just learning from taking Daniel Jones at 6, as we ultimately don't have the counterfactual to like if Jones doesn't go 6, how late does he fall? But I think that it seems clear that Shador is not going that early. So if a team wanted to move up for Carter and they were like, we really want Shador, they probably try and move out. But I think they take Carter. They have the day 2 capital if they wanted to move back up for their quarterback. So I'm not entertaining.
And it seems like the market past Ward on quarterback seems to be cooling. Now, maybe that's smoke, but it seems like in the Giants' shoes, it would make sense to just take Carter.
Yeah, and we felt like with the leg up rankings for a while, like there is one clear round 1 quarterback, and no other quarterback is locked into round 1. I'm upset I didn't bet, and Kyle Dvorchak got on like under 2.5 quarterbacks when it was plus 300.
Nice.
My spidey sense tells me that at least one of Shador and Dart doesn't go round 1. And I think it might actually be more likely neither does than both. Like I don't think these are round 1 quarterbacks based on how the league sees it. I think one probably does. Like if the Saints try and aggressively move up, because like for the first time ever, they have their draft capital and extra from the Marshawn Lattimore trade. I think they're in on Dart, and we'll get into some of those like QB potential pairs in the trade up later.
And the NFL is strange, where like, I mean, it makes sense why this happens, because there's like this fan expectation thing that happens when you take a guy in round 1, right, versus round 2 versus round 3 or 4. Like the expectations of what you're doing. Mm-hmm. I mean, obviously there's a huge difference in draft capital spent, which helps drive those expectations. But I think at quarterback, there's just kind of a built-in thing of what it means to take a guy, even at like 28, versus waiting in the 2nd round and letting a guy fall to you, like what that says. And, I would reference kind of the Justin Fields thing from last year, where no teams were willing to basically invest in Fields at a level that signaled he was their quarterback. Like, we believe in Justin Fields as someone to build around. And so I think he went too cheap, but kind of like, and then, he's, as of right now, a starter for this season. But you're looking at teams that are basically like, I want to either find a guy that we can put our weight behind as a franchise, or I'm like gonna just punt, because then I the fans will see it as a punt, as opposed to expecting us to believe in a guy we don't necessarily believe in. So it is interesting that it looked to me earlier that maybe teams were viewing Shador is a round 1 type of guy and Dart is a round 1 type of guy. And now it feels like maybe the Dart stuff was actually a sign that Shador wasn't really seen, not only as not a top 10 guy, but maybe even as a round 1 guy. Is that like, do you view it that way, or do you think maybe there's a little bit of smoke here and we do ultimately get 3 quarterbacks in round 1?
I think ultimately we do not, but I'm like 60% confident there. So like in a 50-50 market, I don't think it's bettable. And there's also a chance, very unlikely, that Jalen Milroe goes round 1, but it's non-zero, so I have to entertain it. But I think that the teams that are in on Shedeur, maybe the Steelers, but I really think the Travis Hunter team will be the favorite. So that's currently the Browns. And then I really buy that the Giants are going to have interest in him. I think they make the most sense. Like if I were assigning teams quarterbacks, it would be Dart in New Orleans, maybe moving up from round 2. It would be Milroe with the Giants and Shedeur with the Browns, and like Tyler Shuck with the DC Defenders. So there's like, those would be the main pairings. That
Milroe with the Giants would actually be pretty fun.
Yeah, that one I think makes the most sense. Is like, for all we like harp on Russ, he's a functional quarterback, but also one that if you're struggling, it wouldn't be this like cataclysmic franchise event to have to pull him for the exciting rookie that can run faster than almost anyone else on the field and also has a very good arm.
I kind of wish they didn't sign Russ so that they drafted Milroe so that they would have to like get sick of Milroe making mistakes and put in Jameis Winston. That would have been fun.
I mean, the Malik Neighbors receiving yards projection would probably double from that. But I think the Browns also make sense for Milroe, but Scott Smith of 4for4 has been pretty adamant. He's NOLA based that the Saints are connected to Dart, though he doesn't see that as a round 1 or a 9th overall pick.
Right.
So it's tough to find those pairings with how many teams there are. But I think the Steelers and Rodgers have this like wink agreement for Rodgers, like make a spectacle of like, oh, I don't know, I'm like the greatest, give me attention, Pat McAfee, but then ultimately just sign like a 2-year, $20-something million deal. Because like for all that Rodgers is terrible, he typically does take these, in the past has taken these team-friendly deals, like to kind of compensate for it, because I don't think he's like uber materialistic. It's more like an attention-craving persona. So I think he'll sign a relatively cheap deal with Pittsburgh, where like the second year is a team option, potentially. But
so you don't think Pittsburgh's really that into, if Pittsburgh's not really that into the idea of a quarterback, then they would be a trade out candidate potentially. And we'll get to some of the trade out candidates later.
Yeah. I mean, there was one. Yeah, go.
No, go ahead.
There was a report with the Steelers that lined up with my priors, so I immediately like shot it into my veins about how the Steelers had interest in quarterbacks, but there were other targets. I think it mentioned like their defensive line target, that if that was there, they're not taking the quarterback. That's not something that a team would do if they are willing to take a quarterback in the first.
Yeah.
You are not being like, oh, does Walter Nolan make it? Does Derek Harmon make it? Does Shamar Stewart make it? No, if you think Shedeur Sanders is good, the like positional value gain triumphs over those like intra positional grades at edge or IDL.
That's kind of what I'm getting at with like the feeling, and you hear this in like, you know, from guys who have a lot of connections in the league. It's like, if you're down to take a quarterback at like, you know, if you think he's worth the 20th pick, then you might as well just take him wherever you're picking, you know? And I think that's kind of what's happened with Cam Ward. It's like Cam Ward has kind of cleared the threshold of worth a top half of the first round pick, right? Or worth a top 10 pick, however you want to put it. And as a quarterback needy team in the top 10, it just makes sense for the Titans to take him at 1. Like that's
Kyler Murray as well was like that. Like we think of him more as like a stronger prospect, but he wasn't ranked in the top 5 of like Brugler and Jeremiah's stuff on their final big boards. But Cardinals had a connection. Like, you know, we're just going to take a possible franchise-changing quarterback, even if he's not the caliber of franchise-changing quarterback that can go at 1. Like when Zachary Rizzache went at 1 in the NBA draft, no one was saying like they could have had a Victor Wembanyama type, because there wasn't a Wembanyama type prospect in that draft. So in that draft, you take the best player, even if it's way worse than other years. So I think like Shedeur, I think him and Dart are probably on the round 1-2 bubble.
We'll get to those guys a little bit more when we get to the Steelers and actually the Vikings. I want to touch base on the kind of the trade stuff a little more. But for now, let's talk Patriots. You have Will Campbell. Can you explain this confidence level to me?
Well, as someone that's left-handed, you like frequently have.
Oh, I'm left-handed too.
Oh, nice.
Okay.
So like you frequently have issues just using ink pens, like smudging stuff. So if I'm like the skilled scribe using like the quill pen with real ink, like having to dab it, you're then not worried about any blotchings. Like I'm writing Will Campbell and I'm not worried about what comes of it, even though there's a non-zero chance I'm wrong. Like I'm not second guessing it, but I'm acknowledging I could be wrong. But it's nothing I
the
can
quill
do
pen.
about
There's a degree of difficulty, and in fact, you could end up smudging. So this could end up looking pretty bad. But you're writing it in ink. Okay, I like this.
Yeah.
Now, do you think that some of the weirdness here, right, is that there have been reports they're actually interested in Jalen Walker. People have floated Jeanty, although it sort of always seems like people are kind of floating Jeanty like for the Patriots as opposed to like
Jeanty said his range starts at 6.
Okay,
like
so even
he
Jeanty
today
doesn't think.
said like unless someone's trading up earlier, I think it's starting at 6 with the Raiders or a trade up and ending with Dallas at 12. And like I don't know how much stock to put in where Ashton Jeanty thinks his range is, but I believe that it was a truthful estimate of his range, and that is very hard to come by these days.
That's good. All right, so they'll probably go Campbell, but like of these players, let's assume Carter's gone. I mean, how likely do you think something like a Jalen Walker is?
Enough to make me acknowledge that Campbell's not a lock, Walker specifically, but not enough for me to not enough for me to be willing to put Walker there right now. Like I buy the high character stuff, and all we've heard is like Caroline is probably the floor at 8, but he's a super high character guy. He might be on the board for the Jets at 7, though I've heard that's probably not the case, even if Glenn's pushing for that. But the Raiders at 6, I think that makes sense, and the Jags at 5. So if he's on the board at 5 and 6, and teams really value him, I don't see a reason why he wouldn't be on the board at 4. But man, the positional need is so dire, and I think Campbell's viewed as O-line 1 by most of the league, though I have been told that some are Banks and Membu teams.
So, yeah, I think with the Patriots, it's kind of one of the worst years ever to have the 4th pick. And so my assumption was that some of the Walker, I'm sure they like Walker, but the need is so dire at tackle. I mean, frankly, they could use a right tackle too if they had, an extra first. But it's such a dire need. It strikes me as maybe like them trying to get a trade. It's like, hey, because Walker is sort of the guy. It seems like Walker. Do you agree with this? That Walker's kind of outside of Ward and then the 2 true blue chip guys in Hunter and Carter. Walker seems like the closest thing to like a sort of a half blue chip that exists in the draft, where people are starting to get kind of like maybe even more than Graham.
Taking into account positional value, because like Jeanty is a blue chip player, but he's out of position where devalue. Sure. I think Campbell's close there. I think all cycle he's been held in pretty high regard. The arm length isn't great, so I don't think Campbell's a blue chip player by any means. It's like you should not be having blue chip players even every other year at positions. So like, Campbell's not this like godsend of a tackle prospect. I don't think Walker is either. Like I mean, talk about like length concerns and size concerns. Walker's a very undersized edge who's like a linebacker convert. So I'm not fully there, but every team has raved about him. Like will be a captain on whatever team he's on by year 2. Type stuff. Like teams are going out of the way. And Jeanty, it seemed like teams are raving about Jeanty's character too. But Walker, like everything you hear, it's like, he's like a decent football player, but this is like the best guy on earth. Just like we want this guy. It would be like the guy you want to take your daughter to like prom or marry. Like that seems like what we're hearing about Jalen Walker.
Yeah. It seems there's momentum there. And in fact, you do have the Jaguars taking Jalen Walker.
And I feel bad about it every second.
Yeah. The write-up here you're expressing. By the way, this article is free over on Legendary Upside, so highly recommend people go check it out. It's live on the site right now. But yeah, Mason Graham was the chalk. There's a number of different ways they could go, including Jeanty.
And the Graham was bad chalk, like from early on. Josh Norris was on it. I know I was on like when over 5.5 was plus money because like the group think just decided that like Graham was close enough to a blue chip and that the Jags had a reasonable need. Like when you get one player going to seemingly one spot versus the field, you're not going to go broke just being like, I'll take the field at plus money. when there's no linkage of that player to a team.
Yep. So let's go to the Raiders with the 6th pick. You do not have them taking Ashton Jeanty.
Yeah.
This has been kind of the chalk Jeanty spot. Why did you go Armand Membu here?
Because this team needs an offensive lineman, not as much as they need a tackle, as much as they need a running back, but Membu slots in as a potential starter from the jump at a high value position on a team that's not ready to win a Super Bowl right away, and that can add the 2v2 with a round 2 running back, whether that be potentially TreVeyon or Judkins. Chip Kelly has experience with both, or someone else on day 2, and then maybe a day 3 back to go along with Mostert and maybe Zamir White if he's on the roster. Just makes more sense to me than taking a running back here when you have the chance to take, I guess, like what Red Chip would be the next level tackle.
I think so. I think it's Red
prospects. Yeah. Where Membu, like if Membu hits on his second contract, it's going to be near market rate. I'm not sure he has the chops like be a market player, but he's super young, like almost 2 years younger than me, and I think that like makes me sad, but also is a reason to draft him. Whereas with Jeanty,
get ready to be more sad.
Yeah, I mean, for everything that Jeanty is, and he has a very high likelihood of being that market level second contract back, but you're not winning as much with that, and I don't think the Raiders are ready to like think a running back can supercharge them. And I think this is a trench pick. I think if Jalen Walker's here, like 5 through 10 could go any number of ways. So it's tough to, like, once I pick Walker, because I think Walker's most likely to go at 8, but if he goes at 5, he can't go at 8. But if he doesn't go at 5, I think he can go at 6. I think Banks is possible here too. I don't have a great read on their tackle too, but I've heard very unofficially that it's Membu, and I kind of buy that, but could very well be Banks. I don't think they're a Graham team just with Christian Wilkins, Crosby, their defense, and Tyree Wilson. Their D-line strong enough already that I do think investment will go elsewhere. But this one, if it's Jeanty, I wouldn't be shocked, but I think it's bad chalk. So this is one I'm like, I don't want to buy into the fact the team that has more pressing, more valuable needs goes for like a Band-Aid solution when they can patch it up 80% of the way later in this draft.
That makes a lot of sense. One of the reasons that, maybe over the last couple of days, if you're thinking, oh, Jeanty isn't going to go to the Raiders, one reason you might think that is because there has been a little bit of buzz that he would go to the Jags. We got a question in the Discord. Basically, do you think the Jeanty to the Jags smoke is real at all?
Yes. I think that they have interest. And again, I think that Jalen Walker, I think Ashton Jeanty, I think Kelvin Banks is probably their tackle too, from what I've gleaned. I think Armand Membu's live. If Will Campbell falls, I think he's live. And Mason Graham is still live. Like, we wrote off Mason Graham correctly as this chalk pick, but it's not like he's undraftable at 5 now. He's still very much in play, even if what I've heard of him having a bad draft process is correct. So there are so many ways that 5 could go. And Ted McMillan, like, I put not just because I don't see it happening, but I wouldn't assign it 0 probability. Like, when I think about the players, they were projected top 5 or 10 picks going into this cycle and didn't actually do anything to like disprove that prior. Tet's there, but I don't see with like, I mean, Todd McShay's coverage like has not, I think, been directionally accurate with how I see the draft playing out, and him saying like I've Tet outside my top 50 or at 50.
I think at 50, yeah.
Yeah, felt more performative, like look at me, but I don't get that at all. I think he's a mid round 1 type player at worst, and in a weak class, could that go 5? Sure. Screams maybe they're trying to trade out, but the Jags have just done a great job hiding the pick. Like, even people that think they have information are very prefacing this with like maybe or I guess, not saying here's what I know. Mm-hmm. So the Jags are a really tough one, but I do think like, I mean, I'm very confident that Jeanty's a top 5 player when graded on their board. Are they then adjusting for position enough? I think they will, because why would you taking Jeanty at 5 when you have Etienne under contract for 1 year and Bigsby for 2, and the availability of later running backs that are very high quality prospects is such bad process that I have to think the team's better than that. I don't think teams are going to learn, and maybe this will get clipped, such wrong lessons from paying good veterans strong free agent second contracts that are less than Gabe Davis and Darnell Mooney got. I don't think the solution that a team that employs presumably intelligent people is to then draft a very good, mind you, prospect in the top 5 when you have other opportunities to get better at other positions and yield that like rookie contract surplus value.
It makes a lot of sense. And obviously for the Jaguars specifically, I'll give the Raiders a lot less crap than the Jaguars. I promise you that, because the Jaguars one is just going to be much more of a headache for fantasy. We'll get to the landing spots for Jeanty was another question we had, but want to finish getting, well, let's get to where Jeanty actually goes off in your mock. Before then, we've got the New York Jets. You have them taking Kelvin Banks. This is a pretty popular Tyler Warren spot. Why do you think they'll go Banks over Warren if both are available?
I think that it's crucially just between those two. I think if Banks is off the board, maybe they have Membu over Warren, but I think like the private workouts with Warren and the just clear positional need, wanting to get a culture setter with your first pick makes sense, but needing an offensive lineman, I lean Banks over Membu here. So, but I think both are in play, and I wouldn't fault anyone for like either one in a mock.
At 8, you have the Carolina Panthers stopping the Mason Graham slide. Is this just more than anything that Mason Graham's not going to fall much past 8?
I mean, he could. It wouldn't surprise me if like he was at New Orleans at 9, Chicago at 10, or possibly a little farther, because if the prior was that he goes like he's just rock solid at 5, but that's completely untrue. I don't see why then I think he's in play at 6 or 7 too much, and I think his range is just wide. So I think they're a Walker team if he's there. Walker's off the board. I think it could be Mikael Williams. Like when building a mock, you kind of just have to take some lumps, and I feel like Mikael Williams is very live for San Francisco at 11, as is Shamar Stewart. But I don't want to like jeopardize so many things with how far does Mason Graham slide. Here makes sense with Carolina. They tried to sign Milton Williams, and they lost out to the Patriots. Need defensive linemen, and that's really all there is.
Okay, moving to the Saints at 9. You've got a link here to a tweet that indicated a potential reach by the Saints, but you have them actually going Tyler Warren here. So this would be a very conventional pick, but the Saints, there's like buzz they might kind of go a little bit off the beaten path.
Slick Ricky, which is one of the burners for Ricky, who like probably has info from the agent side. Unclear if team tweeted that a potential massive reach from the sky is coming in for New Orleans. Love to know who, but can't really play around that. Tyler Warren makes sense here with even a Juwan Johnson extension in hand. I think they would like an offensive lineman, but in this mock, the top 3 went. I considered them as the Mason Graham slide team, but that would have required like Mikael Williams, and this was part of building mock, like Mikael Williams at 8, then who do the Niners take? If in this scenario where we can just go to 10, I have them being Warren over Jeanty as I explained with the Bears. I think this is a really nice spot for the Bears to move up one spot and like give a round 4 or 5 pick to ensure they get Jeanty, because I think it's more confident. Like maybe the Saints like Jeanty, but I know the Bears like Jeanty. And they tried to do this with the Dunze last year. We saw the Eagles and Bears do it with Jalen Carter the year before. So could those two swap?
Nick said that he was most confident that, if a player was there, a team would take that player. That pair was, if Jeanty's there, the Bears will take Jeanty. So makes sense for him to be here. If Jeanty's here, it makes sense for this pairing for sure. And it's pretty exciting for fantasy. This would be one of the like clear-cut, borderline home run landing spots. I don't even know if it's borderline. This is like a home run landing spot for a really high-end running back prospect, where we can expect a well-designed offense, decent enough offensive line play now, and potential for the quarterback to take a step forward. They have good receivers, and they like to lean on the run. Right? It's even though that it's like modern offense, it still requires a lot of the run game. So this is a really exciting landing spot. We did get a question from the Discord about the Jeanty landing spots, which you believe includes the Jags, which is kind of been the rumblings, the last few days. The Patriots, people kind of linking him there a little bit. The Raiders, or somewhere weird like the Saints would be, I think, a realistic landing spot that would feel more uncomfortable for fantasy. But we wanted to think through. So, just kind of thoughts on the fantasy impact of where Jeanty might land.
Most of them are good. Like if he goes to the Jags,
that's kind of my read too. Yeah,
have to think another team is like, here's a 6th round pick. Would you give us Travis Etienne?
Yeah, for sure.
And the Jags probably do that. If he goes to the Raiders, that's wheels up. If he goes, I don't think he's live for the Jets or the Panthers. I think that he's live for the Saints. That would be a bummer. And he's a big win on the Bears. So most of them are good. Would not like him to be in New Orleans. But I think their offensive line, or maybe Warren.
And the Cowboys would also be, one that we would be excited about.
Yeah, his self-proclaimed backstop.
Yep. The 49ers, do you think they would have any interest in Jeanty? Which would be a pretty big bummer, given that you could have starts of Jeanty, CMC pretty easily. Man, and only one of those guys will be a starting running back if that happens.
No, they need defensive linemen, I think. I mean, the Will Johnson medicals and not running negatives. I think there's a quote today that Nick Borowski retweeted. Like, they need someone to help set the edge, like a stout defensive lineman that screams Mikael Williams, that screams Shamar Stewart. I'm pretty dead set on the mock having one of those two. Maybe if Banks or Membu fell, but I think it's tough to imagine them falling.
All right, good. Built to the trenches, 49ers. Dallas Cowboys. You have them going Matthew Golden. So how hard did you think about Tet, or even, someone like Omarion Hampton here?
No, Hampton would really shock me.
Okay.
I didn't even put him as a contender. Not that it's like a 0.0, but it's not something I'm entertaining. If someone would tell me which receiver the Cowboys like, that would save me a lot of undue stress. I lean Golden. I don't. Something speaks to like the Texas wide receiver, to Jerry Jones. I think he's like a great compliment to CeeDee Lamb, to give them like the plausible justification. I think it's like I'm 60-40 on it being Golden, but it's tough.
Yeah, I mean, I think from like a real life perspective, the ceiling is, I think Tet's the better prospect. I think he's a better prospect, like very clearly a better prospect. And I'd probably think that even if he were a 2nd round pick, right? He's long as like if he was the 40th pick, I still think it would be a better prospect than Matthew Golden at pick 12. But most people think he's going to go 1st round, even if he doesn't go here. I think the ceiling's higher on him, potentially in conjunction with CeeDee Lamb elevating that offense. Golden strikes me as more of like the new Brandon Cooks, but it's a little more fun. He's like helping to make the offense work better. But I think the offense fundamentally would still be like heavily dependent on CeeDee Lamb to draw targets.
To that point, the idea of the Cowboys just wanting to make their 2024 offense better would make sense with their head coach being the guy in charge of their 2024 offense. So I think that there are reasons to think it's Golden. But
right. There's a role here, and I mean, Golden is an interesting prospect. Like it could really help him to land here and kind of get cast as like the Brandon Cooks role, or like the Jordan Addison to CeeDee Lamb's Jefferson.
Yeah, so a true Robin of a receiver if there ever was one, to like the 100%. CeeDee Lamb Dark Knight.
So I hope this is Tet personally, but this pick does make a lot of sense. I had heard that like maybe like a week ago, that it was, kind of more that the Cowboys had Tet higher, but has that shifted? That maybe it looks like the Cowboys actually prefer Golden.
Man, if there were a list of questions I'd want answers to, the Cowboys wide receiver 1, because I don't think either of those players goes above 12. I think if one does, it is Tet. So maybe like Occam's razor, the better player. or the higher ranked player, but also Occam's razor. Golden went to Texas. Jerry Jones, where did the Dallas Cowboys play? So, but I'm confident that this is a wide receiver. Zabel's, I don't think Membu falls. I don't think they'd reach on Zabel, but I'm not ruling it out. Maybe I didn't put Tyler Booker, but could they reach on Booker? I don't think so. So if you told me the Cowboys had Tet wide receiver 1 as Jerry Jones, I'm pretty sure 1 year, the Kayvon Thibodeau draft year, he brought their big board printed sheet to the press conference, and people were able to then decipher. Yeah,
no way.
Yeah, I think someone on The Athletic then posted it or somewhere, but they deciphered where the names were based on how long, because it was from the back, and you could see. And last year, after round 1, he was well, we really like that Jonathan Brooks fella out of Texas. So, if Jerry Jones, I got on the phone with him, I think within 5 minutes he'd be yeah, we're taking this receiver above the other. So I would like to know that, because their wide receiver 1 is someone I just slot in.
Yeah, that makes sense. And they'll probably have their pick, so it really does matter who they prefer. Dolphins at 13, you have them going Jahdae Barron. You don't really seem that confident here. It's kind of they need good players, right?
Yeah, they need good players. I think they'd love any of the top tackles. I don't think any of the top tackles fall. Maybe they definitely make sense at corner. The Will Johnson injury just scares me more of what team bites. I just in this mock had him falling, and it was truthfully just tough to find a Barron team if it wasn't the Dolphins. Maybe it's Stewart or Williams. But again, this is another pick where I'm Barron is a round 1 player. Just putting him in round 1 on a team I'm not that confident about.
The Colts, Jacob Sanderson gets a shout out here as
this was a derogatory shout out. I don't feel that confident that Loveland goes here. So I just he gives me the out to just put Loveland. But since he's told me so confidently it's Loveland, he takes the blame if the Colts don't take Loveland. This is 5D chess. I think we're all in agreement. If Warren's there, he's the guy. I think Zabel's live as an offensive lineman. Shamar Stewart. It's tough because their defensive line's not even sneaky. It's just really deep. But being a super athletic, unproductive player seems like something Chris Ballard would go nuts for. I think if Banks is there, he's a home run pick, but I would be shocked if he was there. And then Tyler Booker again in that interior offensive line, possible reach. But Loveland, Colston, Colts, just connecting 2 and 2 there on the first name of him and the mascot. And then it's tough to feel that confident on anything else.
Right.
But I don't know. I don't think it's a lock. But it's tough to deviate.
They've been linked to tight end throughout the process.
Yeah. So. And then the Chargers have been heavily linked, but there are 2 players the Chargers have been linked to. So if I put one here, it's very easy to put the other with the Chargers and be right. Of course they're not taking Loveland, because I put Loveland off the board 8 picks ago.
What do you think the chances are that Warren falls here?
Good. I think it would be 20%, maybe 25%. I think the Jets are the first team. I think the Saints and Bears are very live. Maybe 25, 30%. Because if the Saints just go off, just go crazy with their pick, then the Bears get a Jeanty or a tackle that they like. I think the Cowboys are sneaky, not dead to take a tight end. But if it's Warren, I think they are running the pick to the podium, but not sure on Loveland.
You mean the Colts are running the pick to the podium?
Yes. Yeah, the Colts would.
Yeah. Okay. So we got a question here from the Discord. Which tight end of the 2 is more landing spot dependent? And then a question about running backs as well. But
I think Loveland's 2 biggest spots are the Colts and the Chargers. So given that you have one that you're super pumped for and one that you're the 4th option from Anthony Richardson or Daniel Jones, I think it's Loveland. Though Warren, Colts are in play. Jets aren't great. Though being the number 2 there is not crazy. Number 3 in Chicago come the end of the season, or in New Orleans probably is the 3 by the end of the year. So I think Warren's more stable, because I don't think he has a Chargers level outcome.
Yeah, that's fair. I think Warren's probably a little less landing spot dependent in the sense of quarterback play because Warren is more of the yak producer. And so I think as long as he's like with a decent enough coaching staff, and it'll be the team that just drafted him. So there should be a plan for him. But the Colts is bad. Even from short target perspective, the Colts are a bad landing spot. So both these guys are like equally hurt by going to the Colts, I think.
Well, I think
that's not a spot
Loveland's
where we want either of these guys for fantasy.
Loveland's other out being the Chargers is so much better than any of Warren's outs. Like the range on him is greater.
Yeah, that's true.
And then I do think Loveland, if there was a
Warren going to the Bears would actually be pretty interesting, assuming he would dust Kmet quickly.
Yeah. I mean, of the players, I know Schrager tweeted like Loveland and Mikael Williams are two players that, like mock drafts aren't high enough on. I don't know how many teams have flagged Loveland's medicals. I think there are going to be a lot of teams that are not considering him in round one. So that's just a question. And we don't know.
Hopefully the Colts is one of them.
Yeah. So it's like take your Gray Zabel, Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Colts,
that's a great pick, Colts. All right. Let's go to the Falcons. We've got Mike Green there. There's some character issues here. Falcons and Bengals are the teams. I've also heard the Falcons and Bengals is maybe the teams that would be the Mike Green fits. Cardinals, you have T-Mac landing with the Cardinal. I've seen a decent amount of Cardinals going receiver. You note here that it's kind of like, I got to put this guy somewhere.
Yeah.
It often feels like that to me, but it is interesting that the Cardinals are kind of frequently that team.
It makes some sense. Like, it's not like this can't happen. Their number 2 receiver is not a strong second contract level player, whether that's Greg Dortch or Michael Wilson. They hit McBride already on an awesome deal, but getting another receiver that I think would
make more sense to me if it was Golden. Tet McMillan is an odd fit here, I think, but
again,
I mean, unfathomably low confidence level. I hope I'm not being too harsh on the pick, but
no,
I get why you have him here. It's just
this is the pick where I'm probably least confident in the team player fit. Like if I had to like put $1, this would probably be the 32nd of like my expected return. It's just the Tet team, if it's not Dallas, is tough to parse. The Packers make sense, but there's like an edge rusher connection that I buy more strongly. The Chargers have I think more pressing need and a player team fit that I really like. And I don't realistically think he's going in the late 20s. So I don't want to like be disingenuous to the player's range. And the Cardinals seem like they're in so many defensive linemen. They could use a corner as well. And it's not like receivers completely set. So this was more of, there are probably 10, 15 players if I was shortlisting the Cardinals. And Tet would be on that list. And that's good enough for this pick.
That makes sense. All right, let's talk Bengals. They've got Shamar Stewart there. You also noted them as a Mike Green guy. Any thoughts on those two or the Seattle pick here with Gray Zabel?
I mean, the Seahawks, Nick Gorsko's just been heavy that he thinks Zabel is a good fit. There's a huge chalk pick in mock draft circles. I'm not sure. Again, this could be a McMillan deviation, but I don't think the team that trades DK Metcalf is then like the team that wants to invest in receiver. Maybe it's Loveland, which I'd buy, but they need offensive linemen quite badly. It's pretty dire. So that's where I landed. But I think Zabel could be off the board. Maybe they're a Tyler Booker team, but the athleticism on Booker is more questionable. So
right. Although another character guy, right? It's like kind of there was something from Brugler the other day. He said someone had told him he's a better teammate than the character from Rudy who tells the coach to have Rudy start in his place.
Zabel? Okay.
No.
Booker. Yeah, Booker. I've heard that from a lot. Yeah. So I think I don't know how much is a team value. Like, is there just in their draft board if they're grading on a 1 to 100 scale, it's like a +5 for like better character than Rudy?
Yeah, no, the guy from Rudy, he was selflessly allowed Rudy to start. I like that we're going to like where are the Remember the Titans comps? You know, we
Yeah.
just get,
And soon we'll get like a draft day type like Bo Callahan derogatory,
yeah.
where like James Pierce, like no one shows up at James Pierce's birthday.
All right, you got Jihad Campbell to the Buccaneers at 19. You're fairly confident on this one, written in pencil.
Yeah, and again, like fairly confident, still almost always not betting like even up to 50%. Like you're
Yeah, I wanted to know earlier you had coin flip. That's confident. You're expressing confidence there. Yeah.
Like, yeah. If push came to shove, I mean, I don't think 100% of outcomes for the Jets are Tyler Warren and Kelvin Banks, but I struggle to really see more than like 10 to 20% that are other, and that's mighty. That's more confident than you should really ever be outside the top 4, but that's where I'm at there. Campbell makes sense as a, like uber athletic linebacker. Seems like the injury might not be that severe, though. I've also heard Pups in play. It's public info there, but uber athletic, sits behind Levante David for the year, but he's probably retiring, can do some pass rush stuff. So I think that's just a really strong team player fit. And again, tough to fully find another Campbell team later in the first round besides the Commanders, I think.
All right, so then we got the Broncos at 20. Maybe the chalkiest pick outside, the early stuff.
Yeah, minus 115 on FanDuel for like the team to draft Omarion Hampton being the Broncos. And I think it is like coin flip territory for Hampton to be a Bronco.
Just wild for the 20th overall pick.
I mean, we would have had Najee at more than a coin flip in the Steelers year where they're like, we're taking Najee Harris.
Yeah, that's true. It does feel Steelers-esque. There's like, yeah, we're going to take Omarion Hampton at 20. We cleared the entire backfield out. The Pittsburgh Steelers at 21, you have them going Derek Harmon. Mentioned Matthew Golden here. He's long gone. Do you think they would take Tet McMillan if he was here? Or is that just specifically tied to Golden?
Probably. I'd have to check if Tet was a top 30 visit. I know Golden was. Like the Steelers, just like they have top 30 visits with their first round pick. Harmon fills a better need unless they're intent to move on from George Pickens. But I mean, Tet's in play as well, so probably should have included him in the contenders. But Harmon makes a lot of sense to me at 21.
What do you think about if Hampton was here? Do you think they would scoop him?
No, but
really?
I don't think it's a 0. But I think that Harmon is decently ahead, and maybe a different defensive lineman as well. I'm not as
please speak freely. There's no Jalen Warren retribution here.
I think they're a mid-round running back ad. I think they have too many needs. Like if they're going with Aaron Rodgers, and like not taking a quarterback here, given that their next pick is in round 3, means they're going with Aaron Rodgers or Kirk. I guess means that they need players that can help win now. I don't think the running back is that huge ad, or would that running back be the huge like value add in like 4 years? So I think it's a trenches player.
But so you didn't even have as a contender Shador or Dart or Milrow. I mean, there was a time where if Shador Sanders was here, we would have assumed that there's like almost no chance they wouldn't take Shador. I'm talking like a month or so ago. Like I've
been too steadfast in my these are fringe round 1 quarterback stance to like waffle it and put them here. So this is more just I want to see if my eval was right. Even though I was wrong on Nix and Penix last year, I think these are different cats and they are worse.
Okay. The Chargers at 22, you've got Kenneth Grant. You would have Colson Loveland, I assume, if he was here. Tet McMillan would make sense as well.
Yeah. Heard Grant and Loveland, Michigan connects, make a lot of sense. Chargers really need interior defensive linemen. They could also use a tight end. But at the end of the day, like his first name's basically Colt. So I like tie broke to the Indianapolis Colts and was able to slide Kenneth Grant here.
All right. Packers, you have them going Donovan Ezaraku. You're moderately confident if he's there.
Yeah, here in
there's a connection here with the defensive coordinator.
Yeah, defensive coordinator in Green Bay was the head coach at BC. And I think Tampa's really in play for a defensive lineman like Ezzy, but it's not anything that I was like, I have to put him there because then I would have messed up the Campbell. So I think they're a trench player. I think Peter Bukowski, who's a decent Packers beat, like him and Justice Mosqueda do great work, said he thinks that like early on when Packers D-line first pick was like plus 200, he's like, it should be a coin flip. So just like going with the edge player, though maybe it's a corner, maybe it's a pass catcher, but not deviating.
The Vikings at 24, you got a low confidence pick of Malachi Starks. Thoughts on that fit, and then want to have a larger conversation about the Vikings and some of the other teams in this range.
Yeah, the Vikings have like four draft picks after the Jordan Mason trade. You don't want to exit a draft with 4 players. There are going to be teams that want a quarterback, whether it's the Saints, I think, with Dart, the Giants and Browns, maybe with Shedeur and Milroe, or maybe some other team I'm not thinking about and should be more open-minded for. But the Vikings are such a clean trade-out spot with their needs still being available later in the draft. So, I mean, who do we think?
Well, that's the conversation I want to have, because you get the Vikings.
Yeah.
You have the Steelers. If the Steelers aren't interested in taking a quarterback, they become a potential trade-up spot for someone else to take a quarterback, especially if maybe they're like, who knows what we'll do here. You could see someone jump up and grab a quarterback, because, the other trade-up spot that's pretty obvious is after that with the Vikings at 24.
Yeah,
I think I know from a mocking perspective, you don't want to get all crazy and mock specific trades and everything, but like, how likely do you think we are to see trades back into round 1, either the Viking spot or the Steelers spot or someone else in this range?
I think the Vikings are. I don't want to go more than a coin flip for a team, but the Vikings would be close to a coin flip. Like, only having 4 picks, no clear need. Like, the secondary players are probably still available, like good ones, like with the Chiefs pick in round 1 or early in round 2. And they lost like Cam Bynum in free agency. They need more players there, and they need picks to get more players. So I think that it is pretty tough for them to. And Kwesi's been willing to show he's taken less than like conventional 90 cents on the dollar, like the Jameson Williams 12 to 32 trade, I believe, was with the Vikings, where they moved back a ton and took like Lewis Seen and let the Lions come up for Jameson Williams. So they make all the sense as the trade back team. So
they're easy to work with for other teams. Yeah. Then it's like kind of a win-win. This is also a spot where there's lots of spots earlier in the draft where teams would like to trade back, but who's trading up? But here at the Vikings, we know who's trading up. It's whoever in the second round of, the Browns or the Giants
or the
Saints.
Chiefs. The Chiefs with a tackle.
Or the Chiefs for the tackle need. Yeah. That's true. Yeah, so it's not even just the quarterback needy teams. It's maybe something like the Chiefs. So they actually, should have some people calling at least. This will be fun. I hope the Vikings trade out. It feels like a more fun draft if the Vikings trade down.
Yeah.
All right, Houston Texans. You have them going to Emeka Egbuka, which makes a ton of sense for the Ohio State connection there with Stroud, and I also just think he's a good prospect and would be a good pick here. But this is a team that frequently gets mocked offensive linemen. Thoughts on the positional need issue?
Yeah, they need to add some young offensive line talent, and Booker makes a ton of sense. And in this mock, he's here, so I definitely could see that. But I think I'm just going to end up with Egbuka because I'm not certain on how they'd handle offensive line, nor if offensive linemen will be there. It's tough to find an Egbuka team before that. Connection with CJ Stroud, need at wide receiver too, and the report of them being upset that their offensive line lacked character. I don't think the way to like fix character in one department of your team is to not I think you're also going to worry about like the team character health, and everything we've got about Egbuka has just been sterling. This is a young man you want in your franchise and to work with for years to come. So I think that's a huge feather in his cap, and playing with Stroud, having success there, I buy as something that will matter. So I think that this is a pick. I feel like it's a very cozy pick. I was talking with Kyle Dvorchak of just once you slot in Egbuka with the Texans, it's really tough to move off of unless you feel confident about their connection to an offensive lineman and that lineman being there.
All right, let's go Rams. They're going Maxwell Hairston here for you. It's kind of a dart throw pick, but yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Secondary, Loveland at tight end would make sense. Didn't have him here. And then I think like they probably like Kyron enough to extend him, but like who's to say? Like, we didn't really see the Gibbs pick coming. I think Henderson's viewed as a Gibbs-esque, probably like a 90-cent version of Gibbs, probably with more pass protecting chops.
Henderson would be very fun.
And
it would get messy for fantasy this year, but it'd be fun. Very fun long term.
Yeah, like if the Rams don't want to extend Kyron, this is the final year in his rookie deal. You're not going to presumably tag him. You have a very strong running back prospect in a very weak class available to you at 26. This is one where I wouldn't really fault them if they thought, hey, we think this guy can really juice up our offense. Because I do think TreVeyon can be a huge boost to their offense. And it's like 70-1 in DK. Haven't had the stones to take it myself. I might, and I've almost got there talking myself because like just needs to happen 1.3% for first pick running back. So, I think I'm talking myself into it. It happens more than that, I think.
Well, but I've been surprised that they're not linked to interior offensive line a little bit more, or just offensive line in general, I guess I should say.
I mean, I think
their line's not that great.
I think Rob Havenstein, one of their tackles, is in the final year of his contract. But besides that, I think they're decently set. They traded Jonah Jackson, but he was a backup anyway. That they have once my internet loads. I'm not too concerned about their team situation there. That they have Kevin Dotson, who they extended. They have Coleman Sheldon and Bo Limmer, who are potential centers. They extended Alaric Jackson as a left tackle, and Steve Avila was a second-round pick 2 years ago at left guard. I don't fully buy O-line because I'm not really sure where that O-lineman comes in because they're deep. Like they have one extra quality interior player currently. So like I think that a corner makes a ton of sense. Maybe they just have a high grade on someone. That's where the TreVeyon comes in. I don't think besides corner, there's a clear have to have it type player or position. And then if TreVeyon's BPA or Hampton.
Right. At the 27th pick, we have the Ravens going Tyler Booker. You've got this is very, very low confidence. But that's partly because Booker is probably off the board before this.
Yeah, his draft prop's like minus 200 for under 24.5, or at least it was Tuesday, late afternoon. So I'm not sure how likely it is he falls to the Ravens. I think the Ravens would be happy to take him, but they also could use they could use like a lot of things. There's no like uber pressing need, but there are a lot of things like, yeah, sure would be nice to have the round 1 pick here, put Booker in because he fell, and it would make a lot of sense for them. And, he's the guy that's comparable to like the good guy in Rudy, the guy that lets Rudy play. And I mean, how often do you get the chance to draft that guy?
That's true. I mean, I don't know that anyone's ever had the chance to draft that guy, really. The Lions at 28, you've got them going Nick Scorton. So you like them to go edge.
Yeah, I think
but
this
not
is
necessarily this edge.
Yeah, this is a defensive lineman, I feel. And every year there's like that one prospect I learn of 3 to 7 days before the draft. And like, might be around one defensive lineman, like Felix FAU, the Felix Enuduke Uzoma for the Chiefs when he went 32nd. Peyton Wilson, the guy the Saints took like 4 or 5 years back and was a complete bust. Generally, these are not the players that I think work out that well. I think Scouton's a little bit of a better prospect, but I think James Pierce is live with the Lions, but his character issues have been like very well documented by anyone who has like any information about the NFL. So I'm
even
not
stuff
sure.
The Lions is about like that if they can absorb.
Yeah,
I forget who had the report.
The Lions are like I think more capable of absorbing bad character players due to what they build, but part of what they build is built on not letting in bad character. So I don't know how much they're willing to lean it because I would think that if every team didn't have character issues, Pierce is probably a top 12 pick in the draft based on his tape.
Mm-hmm.
But I think enough teams are going to have character issues that I am not going to try and prognosticate what team I think doesn't make that character exception because that's very tough And I don't think there are issues like that with Skoughton, and he's a decent prospect alongside Stewart, the two A&M edges.
Commanders 29 getting back into the fantasy relevant picks. TreVeyon Henderson. This is a fun one.
Yeah, isn't it? I mean, man, imagine Jaden Daniels and TreVeyon like doing stuff in the passing game or doing read options. That's exciting, but I think they really need a defensive lineman. But here, I just made the idea that they're not a James Pierce team. Thought it was tough to find another round one quality edge. Maybe if Skoughton's there, they take Skoughton. If Stewart fell, definitely him. If Ezzy fell, probably him. But they weren't on the board. They could really use a running back, and I think Henderson works well. Like even if you extend Brian Robinson on a Montgomery level contract, like there are different comps of like who is the next Montgomery Gibbs. Henderson, I know, is viewed as a Gibbs style player. Brian Robinson's similar in that mold to David Montgomery, so I really like that combo. And he just adds a ton. Debo's probably not on the Commanders next year in the passing game and as a rotation, like getting some of the carries, but not all. So I really like the fit there.
Yeah, I think that would be fun. You have the Bills going Will Johnson, the Commanders going Josh Simmons.
Yeah, and that's one. The Chiefs one, I think they could trade up for Simmons because I don't think they'll have issues with some of those potential character red flags. But I'm not like penciling in a Chiefs Vikings 24-31 swap, but I think Simmons probably goes before 31, and there's a good chance he goes to the Chiefs before 31. Johnson probably going round one. Not really sure where. Bills need a corner. Medicals and speed make him fall.
So yeah, Will Johnson, at corner, this is normally I'm not paying as much attention to corners as the fantasy relevant guys. Paying a little bit more attention to the offensive lineman this year, in part because I care about what happens to Drake May. But am I wrong? Wasn't Johnson thought to be going like much higher at the beginning of the process?
He was a CB1 top, wouldn't run a 40, apparently some medical issue and zone heavy usage that like rules out some teams that I think want a base and man. So I think that it's just a confluence of factors, and if any one of them is super strong, I think he could fall. But would the even Saints at 9 as like an absolute ceiling, Niners at 11, maybe the Dolphins, I don't know who their corner is, then maybe the Bucks and a few other teams, the Cardinals. Like I could have slotted him to the Cardinals, but then I was like, where do I put Tet? I don't think Tet falls to 30 as often as Johnson.
So the Bills are feeling pretty good about this if they get Will Johnson.
Yeah, I think that would be a great pick as well.
Okay, so the Chiefs, as we talked about, candidate to trade up. They get Josh Simmons here, and then to close it out, the Eagles take Walter Nolan. Thoughts on this one?
Probably a round one player. Did not go in the first 31 picks. Fits the Eagles likely going defensive lineman. Like that's how a lot of the mocking goes of like why do certain players go to teams. It's because I didn't put them on other teams, but I think this is their range. Like I think that Pierce is one that I think is really in play for the Eagles too, in terms of willing to take on possible character questions and belief in their development system. So it was between those two. Any of the other defensive linemen would have been in consideration as well. And then put a few of the honorable mentions as well, courtesy players.
Like, run through the honorable mentions for us real quick.
Nick Emenwari, really strong safety prospect, could go early. The Knickerbockers, like we lost last night to the Pistons, but feel good about a round one series and hopefully stealing the game in game 2. I think all the quarterbacks are live, listed them in order. Shedeur Dart Milroe with potential trade ups to 24. James Pierce Jr., I think, is live for the team that excuses the character issues. I don't know who that team is, and I'm not going to, unless I get medical and character reports from every NFL team, I will not know those. Trey Amos is another strong corner prospect I think could go. Josh Connerly Jr. is a semi-strong tackle prospect that I don't think is too much of a reach for a team that needs an offensive lineman. I saw the new Ryan Coogler movie Sinners this weekend. It was phenomenal. I implore you all to see it on a big screen, and had a really good Apple at lunch. So I want to give that an honorable mention. And then the note, I will probably, because we're filming this Tuesday night, Wednesday night, just list a new 1 through 32 at the bottom with potential tweaks. I'll be agonizing over picks 5 through 10 until like Thursday at 7:59 p.m. But besides that, like there's some picks like Egbuka. I'm not sure I can ever move off him to Houston because I think if he's there, they're really likely to take him, and I can't really find the team ahead. But then there are other picks. Like if I just saw one report, more confirmation of Jeanty to the Jags, like yeah, slot him at 5. Like, if I saw one on the Raiders, I'd be like, sure. If I saw Tyler Warren to the Jets, yeah, absolutely. Could Kelvin Banks fall to 10 or 11? Absolutely. Could Jalen Walker go 8? I think all those guys, like Mason Graham, who knows? That range, I think I'm going to go like 0 for 6 on picks 5 through 10, but it wouldn't shock me if like I hit 3 or 4 correct. I think there's like a lot of chain movement in that group.
Yeah, like once you at 5, it really feels like whatever you decide at 5 kind of determines how well your mock draft is going to look.
Had a draft of this where I had like 3 or 4 potential paths, but even then I was tweaking it too much to get combos. I was like, I need probably 8 combos to feel good on it's one of these or like close to one of these, and didn't want to bore the people with those. So I put one that I thought is live here, might put another at the bottom of the article. And again, article's not paywalled. Any changes will be visible. And yeah, it's going to be a fun draft. A lot of uncertainty. It's going to be fun early into day 2 if those quarterbacks are still there as well.
It will be. Let's answer a few more questions here. Paul asked, who is this year's Kadarius Toney? Who's going to make me put my feet up on the desk?
I mean, I think
with the shocking round 1 selection.
Mason Taylor would be the true, like, I don't think this is a round 1 player and it would shock you in a negative way.
That's
I think TreVeyon's like still decent plus money to go round 1. I think he's closer to a coin flip. So that would be one, like a more complimentary way. Like Toney went.
Yeah, he's more like he's not a sure thing to go round 1. He's he's
like ETN, right? Because ETN was like a question of what does he go round 1, and then like Toney only goes because
ETN was gone.
Or no, ETN goes because Toney was gone.
Oh, that's right.
Urban Meyer loved Kadarius Toney, and then because Kadarius Toney's gone, like, well, can Travis Etienne play the Kadarius Toney role?
So great process. I don't understand why that regime failed.
Hey, Kadarius Toney's now like trying to be an aspiring rapper, so I wish him success there.
He was an aspiring rapper while he was in the NFL. That was part of the problem.
Yeah, I know. He had to leave the NFL to fully dedicate his life to the career.
So okay, yeah, I think Mason Taylor. That one is hard to beat. It's fantasy relevant. It's like truly perplexing. Yeah, it's bad. It's just bad. I mean, it sounds like he's like a great dude, really hard worker, great,
So am I by like my parents' accounts. I'm not going around 1. But like, yeah, if a team would like to offer me a 4-year, basically fully guaranteed contract, I would gladly take it. But, like, that's not a reason they should take me.
When I unplugged a little bit from kind of the draft capital projection matrix and like went to write up Mason Taylor for fantasy, which you can check out on the site, I was like, oh no. I've gotten kind of excited about this guy because he's, live for a lot more draft capital than I thought like a month or so ago. But yeah, the profile as far as predictive production metrics, there's not a lot there.
Yeah, it wasn't even that's like a good one. Teammate of Rudy level guy, apparently.
No, and he's not even that good of a guy. He's hard. He wouldn't even be in the
wish we got more reports. Like, apparently Luther Burden like barely practices and like has like family treating him as a cash cow issues. And then there's like James Pierce where the issues are well documented. Like Burden teams are asking for proof he practices. And then we got like the Jalen Walker, Tyler Bookers. I want to know like who the 30th percentile guys are in the class. It's like, he like shows up. I guess we don't know enough about Tet, but him like unofficially talking about how like watch practice and film with everyone, but he doesn't do much outside. I want to know more like that.
That was like 3 years ago though.
Yeah. Who doesn't like refill the Brita for their house and stuff like that?
Oh,
minor tells.
I actually do believe that you could get some roommate scoops, that you could find a roommate of a professional football player soon to be.
Yeah.
who would tell you that kind of information.
My friend at UNC, it's my grade. So like we're seniors now. Josh Downs was years above us, but he was like, yeah, I see Josh Downs studying a good amount, like in the student centers, which was like possibly a bull sign back at the time.
He's been a hit.
Yeah. There's some like day 3 lineman offensive from Middlebury College. And like, I have multiple friends there. I'm like, yeah, he's a cool guy from like their limited interactions with him. But yeah, I'm trying to think.
It's a real alpha.
If I know more of those. If I do, I'll put them in the Discord. But like Josh Downs,
throw them in the Discord.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. What do we got? There was some questions about the running back class. So here's one. Given the relative perceived depth of this running back class, how do we navigate the landing spot? How do we navigate how much landing spot matters? And then there was kind of a question about how landing spot dependent some of these guys are. Let's stick to like the top of the class. I mean, the depth extends, well beyond day one and beyond day two. But let's kind of stick with like, kind of the top 6-ish running backs that are like looking very good for at least day two capital. Any thoughts on kind of the landing spot dependency of these guys?
Yeah,
kind of
I think it matters a good bit, but I don't think it's
Yeah.
abnormal this year relative to any other year. Like if a running back like Zach Charbonnet goes behind a Kenneth Walker type when you weren't expecting that would suck. Their ADP would go down, but I don't really know why it would be different this year. Like because there are multiple factors. Like the running backs are good. Teams take running backs earlier. There are a lot of good running backs. Teams wait on running backs. So I don't find one side more like uber logically superior to the other. I think just teams are going to make their boards like they always do. There will be running backs more often in like every section because it's just a good cohort in the first, in the second, in the third, up until the seventh, and even the UDFAs. There are a lot of them.
Yeah, I think of the top guys that Henderson, Judkins, and Caleb Johnson are probably like more landing spot dependent than Hampton. And I would say that like with Henderson, he's an explosive guy who's never really carried the load. So I would like him to land somewhere like Washington, where you have a team trying to try him out in this intriguing kind of more pass catcher but explosive rusher combo role. You kind of want someone to trust him as like the next Achan type of role.
The round two with the Raiders of like if Amir Abdullah still had juice, or like the Brandon Bolden, like getting all the pass snaps, like doing a lot in the receiving game. And I don't think he'd be forced into a workhorse role with Chip Kelly. Partially that's pattern matching to last year, but I think they'd have enough of a plan.
That would be a fun landing spot too, for sure. Yeah, my concern with Henderson actually would be that he wouldn't maybe get enough work, or that he'd land with a team that like thinks it's better at this type of stuff than it actually is, and so you get like the chess piece player with
Jets
a guy
in round two
chess
would be that one.
Yeah, Jets in round two would be a bummer. Yeah, so and then with Judkins, I think is kind of landing spot dependent for different reasons, in that he's like doesn't have the receiving role is kind of a question, and you kind of need him to land in a spot where they're like, here you go. Here's like him with the Raiders would be awesome. Like that would be almost perfect, where there's gonna be plenty of rushing volume. He doesn't even need to have like 85% of the snaps or anything. He'll get plenty of carries on like 65. So Judkins, but if Judkins were to land as like a prospect profile, I get a little more worried about him if he has to like pass somebody, because I could see him getting Charbonnet. He doesn't have anything that like jumps out to me where it's like, oh, this guy he'll pass a veteran instantly. And then Caleb Johnson, a lot of the same concerns with Judkins, although I've heard that people have also, talked about how he's more like scheme dependent a little bit, as far as being kind of more of a fit for outside zone. So those would be the three guys. Actually getting past them and talking Scatterbo, I think he's like somewhat less landing spot dependent, I think. I mean, in part because I think he's going to be more of like a late second or third round pick. And so it's hard to dream on like the pristine landing spots. He's not going to go to the Raiders in the early second, I don't think,
Yeah, once you're that low on draft capital, like team environment's less of a signal than the place you're drafted.
But he's good in short yardage, and he's good as a pass catcher. So I think he has a couple outs, and he's big. So there's a few different ways he can get on the field. So I think, of the top six, those middle three running backs would be the ones I actually think are the most landing spot dependent. I'd probably say the same thing about Hampton if he had more of like a second round. I think he's less landing spot dependent because of the draft capital.
Yeah, it's a draft capital. Yeah, this was a draft capital question disguised as a team environment.
Yeah, it was kind of, yeah. All right. I think that'll do it.
You're burying the lead. There was one final question, and it's more for you. But who was the Charizard of Emeka Egbuka's as the Pokemon guy, because I've never played. So
yeah, this goes to the running bit that Davis Maddock and I have of assigning the evolution stages of the players. I think I don't have a great one for this because in some ways it's Justin Jefferson, in that he got tagged as like the low upside guy in a class where that was like, first of all, just like clearly wrong. Plenty of upside, but he was the safe guy. He was the low upside but safe player. He literally has the identical build to Egbuka, 6'1", 202. That's both of them had that at the combine, and was viewed as a slot, which Egbuka is viewed as is probably strictly a slot. That was wrong on Jefferson. Clearly, it could end up being wrong on Egbuka, especially given all the really high character stuff, football IQ stuff. He's big enough to play outside. I guess I don't see why he couldn't play outside. That's obviously like mega bullish. And Jefferson was a 3-year guy. He was, he was a better prospect than Egbuka. So it's not quite Jefferson, but I see some similarities. I also see some similarities to like Olave, although they're very different types of players. So I have to think on this one a little bit, but as far as the prospect profile, there's some similarities with like the teammate competition, not seen as like the best guy on his team, where Garrett Wilson,
he's not the
and
best.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, where people got more excited about them.
He's not the best guy in like a football sense, but he's the best guy in a guy sense.
In a guy sense, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know. I don't think I have an answer yet on who the Charizard of Egbuka is. Maybe it's Egbuka. Maybe he's actually the Charizard of this kind of 4-year slot from a big program. Yeah. Maybe this is the best we'll see. I like him. I think he's a very good pick in best ball right now and would be a good pick for the Texans. So I hope you're right about that one. All right. We'll be back here, when we're back. I'm not sure. I don't think I have anything going on the rest of the week. Obviously not going to be streaming on Friday because we won't have any drafts. If you're looking for more content, check out Ship Chasing. We'll be doing a live draft stream for round 1. And so, yeah, good luck with all of your draft props, your remaining best ball drafts, and hope you enjoy the NFL draft. We'll see you later.